Economic Association, I recollect Professor Radhakrishnan, who invited me to deliver a lecture. 10 years he waited for that lecture because I had delivered that lecture in C.P. Ramaswamy Foundation when communist system has collapsed in the world. That lecture in the audience. He said you must deliver that lecture in Indian Economic Association platform. I don't know how many of you know it. That was the first ever tie test in which there were 4 runouts by Australians. 4 batsmen were run out without being able to score 1 run. If they had scored 1 run, they would have won. In fact, the first run out was by one Solomon. He threw the wicket down from where he could see only one stump. He was in the square leg. When he threw the wicket down, afterward 3 more run-outs, the match ended in a tie. Afterwards, Solomon was asked to make the throw 100 times. He could not hit the stump. So I said, these things happen only once. So the lecture which I delivered in C.P. Ramaswamy Foundation, I don't want to repeat because I may fail in repeating the same performance. But actually in 2006, he made me speak on the IEA platform and I delivered that lecture that is available on the YouTube, in which I had mentioned this and also Professor Radhakrishnan's role in making me speak. Indian Economic Association is one of the oldest associations thinking about economics in the context of India. Of course, economics is a subject which cannot be discussed in isolation in the context of only one country. It is an interrelated concept. It's connected to international trade, international finance, international systems, governance. So, this is an august and a very respected forum. And I am very happy to be invited to speak. I know all of you are trained economists or students of economics, and in a sense, I am a trespasser into economics. I learned economics from the streets of India, the industrial clusters of India, the community-based entrepreneurship of India, and the economic history of India. In fact, much of the discussions that are taking place today do not have relevance to the economic history of the world or of even India. For socialism, it doesn't have a huge difference between the producer and the consumer, and there is not much of exploitation. This is how he described the Indian economy in his article. This country cannot develop. In the same way, Max Weber, some 50-60 years later, he theorized that only Protestant Christian values will enable a society, a country, to adjust, align its economic development. And even Catholic societies cannot do it. And he was right, because all the Protestant nations were growing and all the Catholic nations were stagnating. And he was absolutely right so far as the study of the 2 societies were concerned. He had done a lot of study. But he wrote 2 books, one the religion of Hinduism and Buddhism, in which he said these 2 societies can never develop economically because they believe in karma and rebirth. Once you believe in karma and rebirth, there is no initiative, there is no enterprise, so capitalism cannot work in these 2 societies. But it is a conspiracy of historical chronology that the findings of Angus Madison and Paul Byrock, which came in 1980s and 2000, said for 1700 years India was the leading economic power of the world. If this study was available before Karl Marx or before Max Weber, they would not have made that assertion. They talked in ignorance about India. We also talk in ignorance about our country. Much of this economics that is taught to the students in academic institutions and research institutions, it is so sketchy. It doesn't bring out the past competence or even the present potentials of India, about which only I am going to talk to you, not in the context of an autarkic or individualistic presentation so far as India is concerned, but in the context of the whole world. You know, sometime in 1993-94, Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati, who was called the god of free trade because he conceptualized the idea of the WTO. He had come to India. At that time, I was leading the Swadeshi Jagran Manch in India. I was opposing globalization. I was not opposing global trade. I was opposing globalization. There is a huge difference between global trade and globalization. Of course, at that time, it was not possible for anybody to listen to anything that is said against globalization. And so we were all trashed as Neanderthal economists trying to take the country 500 years back. In fact, in Administrative Staff College of India, when I was speaking to a very elite audience of almost 1,500 people, when I was explaining how the idea of WTO is misconceived, it can never work, globalization is bound to collapse, one person in the audience could have said, people like you must be shot dead because you are taking the country backward. This was the extent of opposition that we faced for expressing a viewpoint which has no proof to be correct. So we all faced. We were swimming against the current. We were swimming against a tsunami. It is with that experience I am going to tell you what happened between me and Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati. This is very important. Not only then, it is important today. It is important even for future. 50 years later also, what I am going to explain will be important for any economic thinker. Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati had given a 72-page paper to the government of India, in which he had said, at that time our savings to GDP ratio was 19%. Later on it went to 38%. So this 19% savings to GDP ratio was excessive. India doesn't need more than 10% savings. The balance 9% should be converted into consumption, and then it will transform into production and employment. And once you cut down the savings from 19 to 10%, you will grow so much. Then somebody asked, where will the investment come from? Foreigners are waiting with tons and tons of money to invest in India. Indians should forget about investment. They should consume. They should trade. So that manufacturing you give up. This was his suggestion. And it was a paper in which he had described how Indian women are stingy and they have to be taught to spend. 3 pages he had devoted and said the Indian women should be attracted to spend. You must build huge malls, import goods from abroad, attract them to spend because your goods are bad, they are not buying. You must turn them into consumers. Then nobody can stop the Indian economy. But the problem is the culture of Indian women who do not spend. So I opposed this. I said this is a ridiculous argument. No country can hand over investment to some other country and only consume. It's a very foolish idea. So somebody went and asked Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati, Mr. Bhagwati, you are saying that we should save less and spend more. And Mr. Gurumurthy is saying that this is inappropriate in this country. Who is Mr. Gurumurthy? Somebody said, no, he is also an economist. How? If Gurumurthy is an economist, you can call me a Bharatanatyam dancer. This is how we were all trivialized. We were abused. We were made irrelevant in the global discourse. But fortunately, because I was the only person who was expressing the alternative viewpoint, the media could not ignore me and they gave me the kind of prominence that was needed to counter their opinion. But the important point I am going to relate to you is something funny. I had written an article in the Indian Express in the year 2002. The title of the article was Savings as Sin, Spending as Virtue. This was the title of the article, a short article. This article was picked up by the Hudson Hudson is a very important investment advisory institution in the world. And they had taken it up and they said this is something to make you think. This was in their monthly report, in which they said one of the members, that lady who was the editor of the magazine, she writes this. One of my members sent this extract to me recently, and he has graciously allows me to send it to the rest of our members. It definitely made me think. It made me think so much that I have dedicated this e-bulletin to looking at the way I can help some of our members to stop spending and stop saving. The article is, I am going to read out only a small part of it. Neo-economics, also known as New Age economics, this is in my name. Why does the rest of the world follow US? The secret lies in that the Americans spend, they hardly save. In fact, they use their credit cards to spend their future income. This fact makes it so attractive to export to the US. US imports more than its exports year after year. This I am writing in 2002 when the US current account deficit had not become a huge issue. The result, the world is dependent on US consumption for its growth. By its deepening culture of consumption, US has habituated the world to feed on its consumption. The US needs money to finance its consumption, and the rest of the world provides that money. So, rest of the countries earn money from US and lend that money to US for US to spend that money, and it keeps on going. This was a very dangerous game the US began playing in late 1990s. At the time it was not even noticed. In fact, I used to read headlines in Financial Times. The US consumers keep the world economy going. But how are they? They are not doing out of their income. They are borrowing from the world and importing goods. And that is how the American economy was growing. This was a very unsustainable model, is what we discussed. And we said Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati is completely wrong. But I am going to tell you something very, very interesting. This article began circulating. It is one of the most widely circulated articles in the world. And it was published by many, many countries, in many universities. And finally, there was a report. Savings is sin, spending is virtue. This article which I wrote was actually credited to Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati. 10 years later, Jagdish Bhagwati said in 2002 that spending is virtue and savings is sin. This article credited to Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati. Surprising, because I had attacked Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati in this article, but this article began circulating in the name of Dr. Jagdish Bhagwati. Why I am saying this is, when I was called the Bharatanatyam dancer, then 2 years before, the former Finance Minister of India wrote an article in the Indian Express that Modi is being advised by Bharatanatyam dancers on economics, referring to me. So that is why I wanted to come in a dress which is near the Bharatanatyam dancer's dress to tell you economics does not mean wearing coat or suit or speaking in English. It is about understanding the society and the people, how economic habits penetrate into the society and transform into microeconomics. This is my personal experience. I have had discussions with economists of various levels. But the subject of economics had collapsed in 2008. Many people do not know. That's what I am going to tell you to drive home my point. You see, economics started off as what is known as worldly philosophy. In fact, economists were called worldly philosophers. It was part of sociology. But it has now become econometrics. It is a subject of mathematics, a subject of precision science. It is the most ridiculous distortion and transformation of a subject which has to do with human behavior. How people look at money, how people look at their responsibilities, how families work, communities work, individuals and families, how are they related. It's a huge and complex subject. In fact, in the year 2001 in San Jose in America, I delivered a lecture, maybe you can Google and get it. Of course, its video is not available, its audio is available. I said Indian economy is feminine in character. There is a moderation in expenditure, in investment. They turn waste into wealth. Nothing they will throw, our women. They will turn even what we see as waste into wealth. For example, if a chair is broken, they will have it repaired and used. They will not throw the chair and buy a new one. If a car is not in a good condition, they will repair the car and use it. If you see in America, millions of cars which are usable for the next 10 years are flattened and turned into iron rod. That is turning wealth into waste. There is a huge difference between societies which want to reverse the waste into wealth and the societies which turn wealth into waste. I have been in America. I have never seen an American drinking the full Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola bottle will be so big. I have always seen them throwing half of it. It is an economy intended for waste, habituated to waste. And if you see toothpaste advertisements, in India, the toothpaste advertisements will be that you fill the paste completely in your brush. That is not only 1/3 or 1/2 is sufficient. But your advertisement makes you believe that unless you fill it fully, your tooth cannot be clean. This is how selling takes place. The whole concept is how to sell goods. In America, whenever I had gone to our houses, I used to find at least 2 months of stock in their home. Every house was like our bunk shop. You can see some 10 toothpaste, some 20 soaps. Actually, the manufacturers have made you hold the stock for them. This is the consumption model which has grown in the West and it is being transformed into the rest. And with the result, how we were made to adopt. There is a history behind it. You know, in the year 1951, the United Nations issued an advisory to the underdeveloped countries, which is people like us, Asians, the Global South, and Africans. We were told what? I am going to read out this. This is how Indian economics was taught in schools, in colleges, in IAS officers. I am going to read out to you what the United Nations told the underdeveloped nations to do. There is a sense in which rapid economic progress is impossible without painful adjustments. Ancient philosophies have to be scrapped. Old social institutions have to be disintegrated. Bonds of caste, creed and race have to burst. And large number of persons who cannot keep up with progress have to have their expectations of comfortable life frustrated. Unless you cease to be who you are, you can never develop. This was the concept of both Karl Marx and Max Weber, who said you have to discard your past. That you have no culture, you have no value, you are just an individual. And the person is called economics person. He exists only for one purpose, and that is money. This was the basis of economic modeling that developed later. And all nations have to give up, all nations other than the West, have to give up their way of life, their habits, their culture, and become part of what is known as the whole community, whole nation pursuing only money, money, money. I mean, this certainly made the West very prosperous, but it didn't become prosperous only by its own efforts. It also became prosperous because the others could not adjust themselves to this kind of model. But actually, this kind of model is now failing. How? 2008 crisis, financial crisis, what a watershed point, not only in the context of America. Profession has been humbled by the 2008 crisis. And in the crisis, the economies fought like hell. In fact, most of the economists who were valued and praised and respected, they began fighting like people in the street. Economics has become useless at worst, and this is
स्वदेशी जातना मंच वाले सारे लोग सुन लेंगे।
and it is
गुरुमूर्ति साहब का दिव्य
this was the picture of economics,
स्वदेशी जागरण मंच
because everything had become shut down.
आप लोग सुन रहे हो।
Annual balance sheets became quarterly results. Quarterly results became overnight interest rates. Overnight interest rates began deciding the mood of the nations. This had become the financial model which Keynes started. Money as the more important factor than other factors of production. And then this transformed into the Alan Greenspan model. Alan Greenspan was the first one to declare that America doesn't save, it need not save, it will not save because the rest of the world saves and gives us the money. This he wrote in 2007. A book called The Turbulent Years. The next year was the crisis. So Alan Greenspan was called by the US Congress. Gentlemen, you were called the god of free money. That you said we need not save. He said, I don't know what happened. I trusted the Nobel laureates' theories. I trusted the computer. I trusted the software. They were all world class. But everything has collapsed. I don't know how it collapsed. This is called Alan Greenspan's Mea Culpa, admission of guilt. So the financial economics which overtook the entire domain of economics, including macroeconomics, failed in 2008. From then onwards, the American economy began declining. Today, the economic model which they followed, that they stopped producing and they started importing cheap goods to see that there is no inflation in America. America bought cheap goods from outside to see that there is no inflation in America. Now Trump is now reversing it. America is now hit with inflation because the cost of the goods is becoming more. In this, America has incurred a current account deficit of $15 trillion. In the last 25 years, it continues to incur current account deficit of $1 trillion. And the American debt today is $37 trillion, whereas it was only $9 trillion in the year 2005. And the biggest problem of America is debt. The families are in debt, corporates are in debt, government is in debt. Today American securities are not being bought. The biggest problem of America, now you must have seen in many of the YouTubes which are coming of American experts speaking, that if China sells 500 billion worth American securities, America will become insolvent. Because China is holding the maximum American government securities. Next is Japan. We are also holding about $300 to $400 billion of American securities. These securities are not represented by the real worth of America. That is the problem of Trump. Don't think Trump is doing anything harmful to you. He is trying to rescue the American economy because of 23 years of lavish and worthless lifestyle which they have been leading. He is now trying to correct. From the perspective of America, he is right. But America has cheated the whole world, saying that if you follow like us, what we do, you will develop. But actually, your lifestyle has destroyed you, and your lifestyle has destroyed countries, many countries. The country which is facing the biggest problem is China. If the world does not follow the American way of life and continues to import from China, China will become insolvent because there is no balance in international trade. One of the most important aspects of economics is balance. You have to balance imports, exports, income, expenditure, tax, government expenditure. It's like a family's economics. If one country keeps on importing, another country keeps on exporting, this is not a sustainable model. And this was always known. But this was being pushed in the name of globalization. America said there is no globalization hereafter. We don't believe in globalization. We believe in America first. It's a complete admission of the failure of globalization, and the Western models have been having a short shelf life. Colonialism lasted for 200 years. Mercantile capitalism lasted for 100 years. Communism lasted for 50 years. Globalization lasted for 25 years. There is no economic model today. Not only there is no economic model, I challenged a group of economists. Vardarajan is sitting here. It was in the Hindu business line meet where there were three economists. One Ratin Rai, the other was one Ranade, and the third I forget the name of the person. So I was the third speaker. I said, Mr. Ratin Rai is going to talk after me. All three of you are trained economists. I am not. I am going to put a question to you. Can you tell me there is one universally applicable economic law which is applicable and good for all nations? One single law. I said there is no economic law which applies to all the nations. You call economics, economic laws, universal value. I challenge you to tell me whether there is any such law. Ratin Rai, who spoke after me, I accept Mr. Gurumurthy. If any economist says that there is a universally valid economic law which is applicable to all nations, he is either lying or he is dishonest. I am now going to prove it to you. You know, when America kept on importing more than it exported and began incurring current account deficit of trillions and trillions of dollars, normal economic law, international trade law says, international monetary law says that the currency value will go down. If you incur current account, not only not depreciated, it has increased. Not only that, the US economy and dollar are not governed by the rules of economics or laws of economics. They are governed by the laws of physics. You know what is the law of physics? Is that physics says that there is a dark matter which sustains the universe. The dark matter what? We don't know. But the dark matter sustains, positions everybody, all planet movements, everything is regulated by that single source, that single power, that unalterable axiom. America is like that because even though the American economy is incurring huge losses, the American dollar value is going up. It is because America is a country which offers security to investors. It is the insurance cost that sustains American dollar value. We are not subject to economic loss. This was the explanation given in 2006. This has completely collapsed today. There was a time when people were admiring dollar and hoarding it. Today Trump says if you don't, we will kill you. Dollar has become an enforced currency today. It is no more an admired currency. The whole world economy stands upside down. These are all matters for us to inquire. I was introduced as the part-time director of the Reserve Bank of India. Of course, I never accepted any government position. I had to accept under some pressure. Because at that time MSMEs are being hounded out by the Reserve Bank of India. The government was very keen, and I was told at the highest level that you should become the member of the Reserve Bank because to fight for the cause of the small-scale industries, which made me join the board. I always argued within the Reserve Bank of India that instead of keeping your foreign exchange in dollar, keep it in gold. In fact, at that time, many people used to laugh at me. But the Reserve Bank listened to the advice. They began buying gold. In the last 1 year, the gold value is doubled. Why? When the dollar weakens, the gold will become strong. When America weakens, gold will become more valuable. And our Indian women are probably the best economists in the world who have invested in the last several thousand years. What is the amount of gold in our hands? Can anyone say? The total gold over the surface is estimated about 86,000 tons. All the gold mined and kept over the surface. The estimate is almost half of it is in India. Half. And the gold, that of course, it's a matter of estimation. The gold imported between 1992 and 2024 is 19,000 tons. And that way India is probably the richest country in the world in terms of people's assets. The government is weak. People are strong. It is because of their lifestyle. It is because Indian economy is, as I said, feminine in character. They will never waste. They will turn waste into wealth. And they are moderate in spending. And safe investment is more important than risky investment. The extent of Indian household savings that gets into stock market, can anyone tell me? Just 9%. Most of the savings of India is in fixed securities. Don't think you are an underdeveloped economy. In Japan also the same position. Only 9% of Japanese savings gets into equities. And 51% of the deposit savings is in bank deposit. At least you get interest on your bank deposit. In America, in Japan, you have to pay interest to the bank to keep your money. Negative rate of interest. Even then they keep the money in the bank because that is the safest investment, because stock market investment is not the same. These are all the behavioral, moral, culture, history of nations, and you cannot ignore them in policy making. When America was hiking the interest rate, US Federal Reserve, Japan was cutting the interest rates. And Japan did not follow America. But it was as efficient, even today, it is as efficient an economy as American economy. Because that economic model suits the behavioral model of Japanese, its families, its communities. But that is not the way Indian economics is taught to Indian students or even the faculty. And we just look at what is happening in the West and carbon copy it and follow it, so that we have a situation where the economic thinking is inappropriate to the people of India. So my appeal is that you should definitely look into how economics should be taught, how economic thinking of the West should be assessed and not just absorbed. This is my first request. Second thing is, the world has changed completely. The entire post-World War economic order was based on a global order led by America. And in 2020, when COVID hit, the person who articulated the post-World War order Henry Kissinger said, the world order will change forever. He just wrote a 500-word article in which he mentioned in one sentence, the world order will change forever. When the Ukraine war took place, he again said, unless this war ends very soon, the world order will stand restructured forever. Now, whatever doubt was there about whether the world order will change or not, Trump has settled it and he has changed the world order once and for all. And the latest strategic document of Pentagon, America says, America will no more be the superpower leading the world. Every country will have to look after itself. We will help here and there. We will try to balance. We are not going to be the policemen of the world. 5 years before this was unthinkable. 10 years before, if somebody had said he would have been called a madman. That is the pace with which the world has changed. Now, coming to the concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbhar Bharat, many of our economists think it's a bad idea, it's a backward idea. When we were leading the Swadeshi capital expense, I used to laugh at it. Many economists think that it is not a good idea. But when Trump began speaking about American economic nationalism, America first, that is the translation of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Every country will have to now readjust its economic thinking to the way of life of the people. You know how I learned economics? I'll just tell you in 2 minutes, afterwards I will go into what is Atmanirbhar Bharat. I began learning economics in Punjab, Ludhiana, Batala, Rajkot, Jamnagar, Morbi, right down to Thoothukudi. About 45 industrial clusters. I visited, stayed there for 3, 4, 5 days as to how these industrial clusters become such a booming economic activity without any government investment. You know which is the place with the highest per capita income in India? Can anyone make a guess? I will tell you which are not the places. It is not Bombay, it is not Delhi, it is not Bangalore, it is not Hyderabad, it is not Chennai, it is not Kolkata. Tell me which is the place? A place. It is a place called Morbi in Gujarat. Morbi. Some people call it Morbi. A dam burst wiped out that place in 1965. In 2001, a earthquake flattened that place. There are 1,200 ceramic factories. It is called the ceramic capital of India. There are equal number of textiles. You know what is it? Now the population must be about 5 lakhs. When I went there, it was about 4 lakhs. And now it must be about 8 lakhs. It is the place with the maximum employment. In the Ajanta wall clock you are seeing. The Ajanta wall clock is manufactured in Morbi. They have entered into deal with China to access the American market. The one language which the people of Morbi do not know is English. They don't English. They know only Gujarati. And 1/3 population is Muslim population. They align and do work so well. It is the most prosperous place. I don't know whether any of you have had people dealing with the Kachis. They are the only people who do not buy goods on credit. They pay money, take cash discount. This is the work. When I went in 1994 to Jalandhar, I was staying in an RSS leader's house. He said, sir, can you come to my factory? It's a small factory. We make cricket bat. Cricket bat? In Jalandhar? He said, we make cricket bat. Whom do you manufacture cricket bat from? Sir, the entire Australian cricket control board order comes to us, sir. He said, I want to see your factory. This factory is half the size of this hall. And there was a carpenter working. He said, do you see this carpenter? Yes. He may make 10 villas a day, 50 villas a day, 20 villas a day, depending upon his work. I pay him 75 rupees a villa. And see the Maruti car standing there. In those days, Maruti car was a very big item. This belongs to this. That in Jalandhar, in 1994, Australian Cricket Control Board order was being placed in a small factory. I saw this everywhere. I don't know how many of you have gone to Tirupur. When I went to Tirupur, there was a 1-year road. And they are now exporting almost $6 billion worth network government. 68% of them are educated less than 10%. And throughout India, I found uneducated employers and educated employees. IITs do not produce. This is the picture of India. The entire BSC Sensex 30 companies, their contribution to GDP is just 6%. Just 6%. It is Jalandhar, it is Tirupur, it is Namakkal, it is Karur, it is. These centers constitute 60% of India's production and exports and employment. But they will not figure in the Economic Times or Business Standard or Business Line. You will not even read about them. How do you understand the Indian economics? Now I am going to conclude with 3 points about what Atmanirbharta means. I had a discussion with Prime Minister Modi when he gave the motto, one earth, one family, one future for the G20 conference. Then he asked me, how will you explain it? Then I gave an explanation which I am going to tell you. He asked me to deliver the lecture to the Niti Aayog on 23rd October or maybe 28th October 2023. I delivered the lecture. It's available on the net, you can see it. You know about our food security. What gives us food security? You know, in the entire world, our land is 2.4% of the global land area. In the entire world, its surface is taken, 27% of the global surface is land, out of which we have 2.4%. 2.4% or 27%. But we have 18% human population in this. 18% of world's human population. 30% of world's bovine population. 42% of world's cattle population. And 8% bioresources. And 21% forest cover. It's an ecological wonder. America is 3.5 times the size of India. It has 1/5 of bovine population. 1/4 of human population. China is 3.5 times the size of India. Its bovine population is just 1/6 of India. When we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it is not only every little beings have the right to live. When we eat our food in 1960s, cattle population kept increasing, bovine population kept increasing. We didn't eat them. What? India's food security. I am going to give you a stunning statistics. You know, we are also meat eaters, but meat is not our main food. Cereal is our main food. Our average meat consumption per head per annum is 3.5 kilos per head per annum. For America it is 120. For South Africa it is 180. It is for European countries it is 110 kgs. We just eat 3.1 kg. Our maximum consumption is cereals. We eat about 180 kgs per head per annum. You know why? Cereals give you 83% of the calorie value. Note it. 83% of the calorie value comes from cereals. Only 17% comes from meat. 63% of the protein value comes from cereals. only 37% comes from meat. In fact, cereals are fed to the animals to produce meat. That means you feed 83% calorie value to get 17% calorie value. This is the American model of agriculture. So there is again, you want these data, you can go into ourworldindata.com. Ourworldindata.com. Let us assume all Indians decide to shift to the American way of eating, eat only burgers and things like that. We will need 6 times the agricultural land we have. Our country's size has to be 2.5 times this. And 1 kilo of cereal and 1 kilo of meat, if they are compared in terms of CO2 gas emission, it is 10 to 100 times more. If all Indians decide to shift to the American way of life, there will be no environment in the world. 35% of the CO2 gas emission is from agriculture, of which 90% is from meat. If India, a big country, shifts to meat eating like Americans, we are also meat eaters. 60% of Indians are non-vegetarians, maybe 68%, but there is a balance. That is what is our food security. Our agricultural waste is consumed by animals, not agricultural products. You see the difference between Indian agriculture and American agriculture? Now come to housing. I am not going into detailed statistics, but this is sufficient to show how in the Indian food style changes. There will be no food security in India. Next is housing. We have 4.5 persons per household living together. 3 generations live together. We share our space. And in America, there are 2.5 persons per household. It was 3 persons per household in 1960. It has got reduced to 2.5 because every family has become nuclear, and there are 28% of the American families are only father and the mother with children living together. 49% do not have children. 28% live together without marriage with anybody for any length of time. The families have collapsed. First marriage is ended in divorce, 55%. Second marriage is ended in divorce, 68%. Third marriage is ended in divorce, 74%. This is what Psychology magazine says. With the result, the families have become just meeting points. There is no living together. 90% of the American families do not have kitchen. Kitchen is multinational companies. A house without kitchen, a house without a role for women cannot be sustained only by bedroom. Of course, they don't have puja room. You must understand the condition of the American families which are self-centered. I am going to tell you about the social security issue. You lost the point. If all Indians who are living with their parents and grandparents, that is what makes 4.5. In fact, we have more houses than families. We have about 27 crore families, and we have about 33 crore homes, because many people have home in their village and also here. So, if all Indians decide to live like Americans and disown their responsibilities to parents, and the average number of persons living per household becomes 2.5 like America, we will need 135 million more houses. We don't have space, we don't have money. This is lifestyle supporting economics. Food style supporting economics. Now the last point I am coming to, the social security. In India, we all take care of our parents, elders, dependent people. In fact, even our sisters and others who have no support, we support them. In fact, we keep them in our houses also. In America, this doesn't happen. Parents are not supported by students, by children. Children are not supported by parents. In fact, in UCLA in America, when I was addressing the management students, I asked them to raise their hand. Who are supported by families for your MBA? in an audience of about 150 or 200, I said Indians don't participate in this. Only non-Indian students participated. Almost nobody raised their hand. Family supporting, nobody raised their hand. I asked the Indian students, please tell me how many Indian students you are supported by families. Almost every Indian student raised his hand. The family supports education. And because of that, we support elders, we support children support us. This mutual, parasparam bhavayataha, this is what Bhagavad Gita says. The society survives because of mutual support. The younger generation supporting the elder generation supporting the younger generation. This is what the American economist said. You note the book, very important book, US Economy in Transition 1980 by the National Bureau of Economic Research, in which people like Milton Friedman participated. The economist said, don't interfere in the intergenerational obligations. Let the elders support the youngsters, let the youngsters support the elders. But the American politicians did not listen. They said, you don't worry, we will support you. They brought in the universal social security. You just pay 12.5% tax and forget about your parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, children. We will support. So much money came into the system, they said, we have a successful system. But when the American population began dipping from 2006, the deposits into the national security dipped and the withdrawals from national security increased. With the result, there is a deficit in national security account, social security account, and if the future burden is reduced to the present day value, the deficit in US national security, so social security is $72 trillion. This is a dynamite under America, but in India, the entire social security is taken care of by families, our culture, our value system. If all Indians decide to disown their parents, the responsibilities towards near and dear, 70 crore people will be standing before Prime Minister Narendra Modi's house for 2 square meals a day. There will be no India. But do we study Indian economy like that? Indian economics like that? Do we teach Indian economics like that? Atmanirbharta is founded on lifestyle. You can stop the import of goods by tariffs, but you can't stop the import of lifestyle by tariff. It has to be protected by consciousness.
अद्भुत था। स्वदेशी जागरण मंच के हमारे कन्वीनर थे और हम स्वदेशी जागरण मंच सभी काशीवाल से कहते हैं कि इनका ये भाषण पूरा हमारे यूज सुन लीजिएगा।
Listening to Dr. Gurumurthy has been nothing short of inspiring. He not just gave a lecture, he made us to go along with the journey. From his memories of Dr.